Today we have GameSpot's next big game series from 2014. Not going to be speaking through this one, so take it away, Danny!
Hello and welcome to GameSpot's The Next Big Game. This month we feature a game that nobody had heard of a mere 8 months ago, but one that has captured the imagination of gamers all around the universe. A game about exploration, a game about the desire to see what's over the horizon. It's that same desire that has people around the world desperately wanting to know what type of game No Man's Sky really is. And this week we'll answer many of those questions. But first, perhaps the most pertinent question of all. How can a small development team based in the south of England possibly make a game of this scale?
Myself and the guys from Hello Games have a bit of history. I met co-founder Sean Murray at a Games Expo in London when we realised we were both in the same county in Ireland. Before I joined GameSpot, I interviewed them as they were developing their very first game, Joe Danger, a series that was very successful, spawning 2 mobile spin-offs and a full sequel. In fact, the night Joe Danger 2 was released, Sean joined us for some beers on a GameSpot livestream, and whenever we're in the same city, we always try and cross paths. So over E3, we organised a few hours one evening to sit down and talk to the guys from Hello Games. But in typical E3 fashion, everyone was running late.
Apparently they're running 30 minutes late. They're over at our good friends at Giant Bomb in the JW Marriott. Did I tell you what happened this morning? So we're like 15 minutes from going live and they're the first game on the show floor. Like I got a text from Alex. He's like, well, he calls me. He's like, we're outside the South Hall. It's like, you need to be inside the West Hall. And also they didn't have passes. So I had to like get wristbands off of Sarah and like sprint out there. Can't believe you kept us waiting for this nonsense. What's up, buddy?
Thanks so much for
Good to see you again, man.
Congrats.
Before Hello Games, where did you work? What projects did you work on?
I actually started out at Criterion, which was kind of pretty small at the time. It was like 15, 20 people or something like that, which is like how I envisioned games to be. And then when I left, it was about like 3 years later, and it was like 400 people or something ridiculous, which is like this massive growth. And we'd been bought by EA, and I didn't know half the people on the team. And actually I enjoyed it and stuff, but it just wasn't for me forever, you know what I mean? And actually I was like, if I stay here, I'm at that point where I can actually picture myself being like, you know, old and big here, working on like Burnout or Need for Speed for the rest of my days, you know?
I was originally a concept artist. I worked on Warhammer Online, the original Warhammer Online, which never got released. I moved to Sumo, where I worked on loads of Sega games. I became an environment artist, and I became the lead environment artist on games like Virtua Tennis, sort of Outrun, and Sega Superstars Tennis. Lots of really colourful Sega games.
I can't give you a list of games that I worked on.
Did you work for Kuju?
I did work for Kuju.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah, and so I didn't have many released games until I met Sean.
Did you have any released games?
No, not until I worked with Sean, basically.
Okay. How many games did you work on that weren't released?
Quite a few. I know there was a Game Boy game that was released.
Okay.
I was very proud of that.
I started out my like pretty much first day at Criterion. I was like sat beside Ryan, who had just joined. We kind of grew up together in that studio. And then I had met Dave and worked with Dave for a little bit. He was another programmer. So there was us 3 coders, and we were talking about setting up, and Dave introduced us to Grant, and Grant and Dave used to go to school together. So it was a really tight bunch. I mean, we all knew each other for years, kind of thing. Like, it was kind of necessary because we ended up starting up Hello Games in this tiny little room. You actually came in there and you showed up with the cameraman and you, and that was too many people. Like, we were running out of oxygen, basically.
Joe's success meant they didn't need to stay in that tiny room for long. As the team moved to a new studio, they expanded from 4 all the way up to 10 employees. But expansion brings its own set of challenges creatively. So when it came to starting a new project, remarkably, they decided to split their team in 2.
So there's 10 people working there, and for us, that felt big, actually. That felt like we were going back to a big studio. Like, 10 isn't big, but it's still something.
It's double the size you were.
Yeah. But what fuels me is that really small team prototyping. I just love that, and I live for that. It was a slightly different forge, the 4 founders, but we actually had a little room in the studio, like the smallest room. And we went in there, and we genuinely just, like, literally locked the door. We had a separate entrance. And we didn't show the rest of the team, which sounds crazy.
Wow.
Because 1, it was kind of mental what we were doing. And 2, it gave us this, like, this passion that we hadn't had since Joe Danger. You know, we were developing that, and it felt like it was make or break the entire time, and we knew that we would have to show people eventually. And so we wanted that again. And we wanted this pressure of, like, the guys are working really hard next door, and they're putting Joe Danger on other platforms, or they're working on other stuff, working really hard, and we need to, like, justify what we're doing. Yeah, and we need them to come in and say, that's cool, or whatever. So we went a bit crazy, and we actually didn't show them until a few weeks before the VGXs.
No Man's Sky first broke onto the collective gaming consciousness when Jeff Keighley featured it at the Spike VGX Awards. But what you probably didn't know was that Sean actually tried to have it pulled when he became worried that people wouldn't think it was real.
Like, Jeff Keighley seems to be some sort of, like, I don't know, he's got some mythical power or something like that. He genuinely just mailed me out of the blue and said, he's very American, so he said, you know, if I gave you a shot at the big time, would you take it, or something like that, right? And I said yes, and then I told the guys, and we totally weren't prepared for it, so we just killed ourselves basically doing it. Built it, put together the video, sent the video out, kind of got no reaction, just silence from Jeff and stuff. And then I got really worried, and we decided we'd show some press, so we called in some UK press, and they were just completely silent. And I asked them what they thought, and they said, I don't think we should tell you right now, and they just went off. And we had to leave that meeting. Dave knocked on the door and was like, we have to go. Got in a taxi, the 4 of us then flew straight out.
You're kidding.
And we actually met you
Yeah.
the next day. Well, it was still kind of the same day for us, so we'd just flown over. You were the first person who saw it, who said, it looks great. And then,
But I was still, I remember being silent, but I remember watching it and then going, wait, are they actually doing this? Like, and then what happened was I turned and saw your faces and saw how terrified you guys were and went, oh fuck, this is real. Like, did you ever find out why those other journalists didn't, they said, we don't want to tell you?
one of them kind of thought it's just some sort of fake, you know, 4
Okay.
people haven't made this and I don't want to comment on it.
I guess now you know, because you've seen the public reaction, that what that must have been was that people are thinking, this is actually, this game is trying to bite off quite a lot. I wonder if they're able to do it.
Yeah, I guess there's part of that, right? I mean, we went on the VGXs and I tried to pull it and Jeff said I couldn't. He was like, I've really fought to get you a slot. And, you know, I'm not going back on that now kind of thing, thankfully.
Sean and his team suddenly had the world's ears, and the initial hype was starting to gather the momentum of a runaway train. Only an act of God could stop them now.
Not a white, but a wet Christmas as river levels peaked in the early hours. In parts of Surrey, rescue teams were out as record flood levels were reached and breached. Across the UK, more than 100 flood...
Yeah, so I mean, we were on kind of a high actually, finishing up at Christmas. It was like, this is awesome. People seem to be reacting really well to the game, and it was like probably the best thing that ever happened to the studio kind of thing. I got a call Christmas Eve night saying like, your office is flooding basically. And we're actually on a ground floor and all our PCs on the ground, and they were like blowing up and exploding and things like that.
So what about, how did that damage the game? Did you guys have stuff offsite backed up?
We had stuff offside, and the time we kind of said, don't worry guys, you know, we haven't lost anything, but the reality is you have, and you just don't know how much, you know, and you also don't want to say, because people are just going to go, forget about it, it'll never come out, it looked crazy anyway, you know, so we were just like, it's fine, don't worry. You know?
So it did put you guys back a while then?
Yeah, absolutely, and for us this E3 has been really, you know, for us, it's like this triumphant thing, like we didn't let it stop us.
The VGXs proved to be the warm-up act as Sean took to the stage at Sony's E3 press conference, giving what was once their little 4-person project even more exposure, and with it, a hell of a lot more expectation. Surely now even they must be asking themselves if they can pull it off.
What does it feel like now that the game is out there and that people are asking questions about what this game is, to have the expectation of other people on top of the obviously personal expectation with a project like this?
I think it's brilliant, really. That's like, it's what you want. It's the best feeling, really. The best feeling to have so many people care, and you know, they can say what they want, really, and just the fact that they're talking about what we're making is just an amazing.
That fuels you if you're feeling down. You see that when we flooded, you know, it's nice to be working on a game that people want, right? That is a big deal. But I've never experienced this before. Even on Burnout, we were, you know,
Like so far.
several hundred people. We still weren't on stage at one of the keynotes, you know what I mean? This is like a level of expectation that it's really hard for a small team to deal with. Right? And yeah, I mean, people want it to be every different type of game as well. It's really open to interpretation, and we're leaving it a little bit open to interpretation. So yeah, it's definitely a double-edged sword, you know.
All right, then let's break into what exactly No Man's Sky is. So you've shown off a lot. Tomorrow on GameSpot's The Next Big Game, we unveil the gameplay of No Man's Sky. We give new details about the moment-to-moment play, your role within the universe, the tools at your disposal, and the possibility of playing with others. All right, I'm off to kill a dinosaur with a spaceship. See you then.
My car was found in a local garage. They'd actually, luckily, they'd pulled it up onto one of those electric hydro, whatever they're called, big machines that lift the car up, and then it had flooded and blew all the electrics.
Oh no!
So when we found it, they're just like, yeah, it's up there, your car.
Was it okay? Was it?
Yeah, it was fine.
It was fine?
Yeah, I could get it back a few weeks later when they actually just, you know, fixed everything and got it back. But yeah, that was.
Are you still driving it today?
No, it's died of its own accord now.
Okay.
But we won't talk about that.
I like it. All right. It's like Final Destination of cars.
It survived that, and then it just.
It was meant to die. When you start in No Man's Sky, what is your role within this universe?
It's an interesting game because actually we'll show like 3 minutes of gameplay like we did at E3. For most games that's enough. You show a racing game for 3 minutes, you've seen everything you need to see, right? But for us, it's like just the start. And actually a lot is possible in the game. And we don't want to prescribe what people do, right? So we're not going to say this is a game about discovering creatures, or we're not going to say this is a game about killing dinosaurs, or we're not going to say this is a game about flying a ship, or you know, becoming a fighter and a pirate or a bounty hunter or whatever. But loads of those things are possible. Not everything is possible, and when we ship the game, not everything will be possible, but this is a game I think we're going to be making for quite a while, you know, even after it comes out.
Is it fair to say that right now you guys haven't decided exactly what those things are as well?
No, actually, we have a really good idea of what it is.
and today we're about to tell you. Welcome back to the next big game, No Man's Sky. On today's show, we're going to detail what we learned about the gameplay in Hello Games' vast universe and unveil new details about how the game might evolve over time. Is there a story? Are there quests? Can I play with others? All questions you've been asking, but all variations on one really simple question. What exactly do you do in No Man's Sky?
When the game releases, every player who picks up a pad and plays is going to help us discover a little bit more. And I can't wait. You start at the outside edge of the galaxy. For a lot of people, the simplest way to describe the game, they will be trying to make a journey to the center of the galaxy. Not everyone has to do that. There's loads of other ways to play it, but that's something that people will probably do. You're going to have to upgrade your ship, your weapons, your suit. You might gather resources, you might take out other ships. You know, it's kind of there. You can imagine what kind of gameplay you're going to have.
No Man's Sky is a game about space exploration. Every player connects to the game begins on a planet, alone, spread across a singular galaxy in a wider universe. Your goal? To use your resources to get to the center of that galaxy. The game doesn't end there, but something tells us you're going to be trying to achieve that goal for quite a while.
So, how do you do it? You start on a planet without a ship. Well, the progression in No Man's Sky is dictated by resources. You can mine for minerals on a planet's surface. Maybe you sell those minerals at a space station to buy yourself a ship. You might be millions of light years away from the nearest other human player, but there's plenty of AI in the universe of No Man's Sky. Trade vessels, colonies, space stations, many of whom would probably love to trade with you. Many others who probably want you dead.
So you have things like the drones that we showed. You also have a weapon, and we've shown some of that. And what we want to get away from so desperately is, I play so many sci-fi games, and the weapon is still an assault rifle or pistol or whatever. It just blows my mind. It's like, and so the type of sci-fi that we're trying to do needs to feel futuristic and things like that. So what you have is kind of like an upgradable, this sounds really boring, but like a multi-tool. That's why people make assault rifles and battle rifles, because they sound cool. We'll call it like a battle tool or something, right? But you can upgrade it in various different ways depending on how you want to play. Say you're mining, or you're more about attacking or being an aggressor or whatever, or scanning, exploring, whatever. You can upgrade it in different ways. You know, we want that to feel futuristic and kind of reasonably powerful, and kind of defines almost like your character in some ways, in that like RPG way, if you want to get into that. And then your suit as well, you upgrade. So you'll upgrade that to have more armor perhaps, or health, or survive longer underwater or in a toxic environment or whatever. So there are, you know, things like that that I guess a core gamer is used to. There's space combat. It's seamless. That can end up being combat over the surface of the terrain. And that can also end up being combat on the terrain. A reasonable number of planets will have a pretty diverse ecology, and on some of those you have things that, you know, are dangerous to you.
No Man's Sky is a game without traditional questing. If you want to travel further, you have to find the means to upgrade your ship. How you do so, that's where the freedom lies. The game isn't missions or levels or rank, the game is the journey. But it's not all emergent gameplay. There are definable ways that the game will record your progress too.
You know, I said there's various different ways to play the game. We will track those various different ways. And within each of those, you can have an idea of status, which you can take as a rank, right? So you could say, I am the #1 kind of space pirate or bounty hunter or whatever, or botanist or explorer or what have you. But it does mean that you can play for as long as you want. And you can play in various different ways for as long as you want. You can follow that trail for as long as you want.
Are you a miner, a peaceful trader, a pirate, or a bounty hunter? What other professions and activities exist beyond those? Hello Games aren't really willing to give us an answer just yet, but you can use your imagination. Maybe you could just travel around taking photographs of the creatures you discover, or perhaps try and upgrade your suit so you can reach the deepest ever ocean. Or maybe you just want to spend your time attacking the main antagonist of the game. Sean confirmed that there is a malevolent force in the universe, but what that is, they're not willing to say.
We kind of have something that we haven't talked about, which is like an antagonist you know, in the universe, kind of a malevolent force, something that drives a lot of combat on the ground.
Another question that keeps on coming up is there multiplayer? I mean, No Man's Sky is a game that takes all its players and throws them onto opposite sides of a vast to scale galaxy. Can you ever meet those players, and can you play with them?
This is not a game about forming a clan or allegiances or whatever, right? But it has some MMO-esque mechanics, I guess. In terms of meeting other people, place is so vast. That's what you can't get across to people. You know, they're like, it starts off all unexplored, the entire kind of universe, and then as each person visits a place, they'll upload that information or visit a planet or whatever. Everyone always asks me, like, after a week, won't everything be kind of discovered? If you took one of our planets, like some of our planets are planet-sized, you know, and you drop 1 million people onto a planet the size of Earth, right? We're still going to be really far apart. So probably even one of our planets won't ever get fully discovered.
In the trailer as well, there's you can see, I guess, what you call wingmen, other people with you. Can you talk about what that is? Are they AI that are along?
So in the trailer, they were AI. You can cross paths with other players, but it's just not a core component of the game. You're not going out seeking them out or whatever, but it's lovely to play and just see a little touch of, yeah, I'm playing with other people. You and your friends, you know, we're doing the worst possible thing probably. We're going to fling you out, you know, really far apart. There is this thing which I'm not going to talk about now, that is a plan for multiplayer and for people to have a more traditional multiplayer experience within the game. And that's something that we'll deal with further down the line. That is exciting, but that is not what's core to the game right now.
I'm sure many of you are salivating at the idea of an expanded multiplayer mode, but it's clear Hello Games aren't trying to make a deathmatch game or a MMO, at least not at launch. You'll be able to meet other players, but just how involved those counters will be is still unknown. It seems Hello Games are trying to craft an experience that's at its most powerful played alone.
You start in a galaxy, and then you're trying to get to the center of that galaxy, and then when you do, something happens that is worthwhile seeking out, but the game doesn't end there, basically. Okay. And you can continue to play the game forever. But there's a big part of us that does not want to like talk and say, this is what you must do. You know, we're going to pour a lot into this game, and we're already pouring a lot into it. I would like the opportunity to see it fully realized, right? And I would like to have a level of success that makes that possible. If everyone hates it and it stinks the place up, then we probably won't keep working on it, right? We'll do that day zero patch and run away.
When I think about what it must be like to play No Man's Sky, if you'll allow me to be reductive, I think about exploring in Skyrim, or a less rigid version of FTL. Your core goal is clear, but how you prepare for it, and how you allow yourself to get distracted along the way, mean your experience is unique to you alone. But not like other games, there's something else at play here. The scale of the universe. In Skyrim, when you saw Solitude for the first time, when you spotted your first dragon, or explored a deep cave, you were struck by its beauty. But you also knew that millions of other players around the world probably were too.
Imagine if you were the first person to see it, perhaps the only person to ever see it. Tomorrow on The Next Big Game, we tackle what the epic scale of No Man's Sky could mean for gameplay, and we premiere the development tools that built an entire universe. If there was one thing that you could have people experience with your game, perhaps in the same way that you did with Elite, what would it be?
That's tough. That you're having that, your own, you're telling your own story. You know, that it's so vast that it's just obvious to you that no one could possibly be doing what you're doing.
The universe of No Man's Sky is incredibly vast, unfathomably so, dwarfing even the scale of games like EVE Online. Today on The Next Big Game, we analyse how the scale of No Man's Sky has the possibility to give us a gaming experience we've never had before.
Well, I played the original Elite quite obsessively. My dad basically had he worked for an electronics company and he had a PC, which was like amazing in those days, like green screen and stuff. And he had like, he was obsessed with it as well, and he had all these amazing save games, and so yeah, it was just one of the most kind of amazing kind of experiences.
I think when I was thinking about the game, you know, which I have since, like, embarrassingly since I've been a kid, kind of thing, thinking about this type of game, you know, it was exactly that, like, these worlds and experiences that you read about in sci-fi, you could never visit those worlds, right? You could never escape to them. You could never see what it would be like or whatever. And you never will be able to, right? And it's something that a book can kind of deliver and fire your imagination, but it's not the same as like that feeling of actually walking around, something that no one else has discovered, some place that no one else has been to. And that's a real kick. And a film can't deliver that, a book can't deliver that, but a game can. And they don't generally, the thing that we're doing a lot with games is they're really prescribed and they're really heavily designed and they're corridor-led and things like that. And so you never get that feeling. But the one thing I would like No Man's Sky to be able to do is deliver that feeling of, you know, I have landed on a planet and no one else has ever been here, and I'm seeing something that no one else has seen. And there are moments when I'm playing the game now, when I was flying around the universe as it is at the moment, searching for a place to stage the demo, you know, that you get that feeling and you're just like, you know, discovering something like, guys, have a look.
No Man's Sky's universe is assembled by a vast array of math and procedural generation systems, which the team at Hello Games had spent the best part of a year putting together. The universe is constant, it's the same for everyone, but what's hidden on each planet is a mystery, even to the developers.
The planets and fauna, and especially the color palette, is just stunning.
Yeah.
How do you do that with a procedural system that is possibly picking all this stuff at random? It's quite tricky. A lot of what we are actually doing is kind of trying to control this procedural system. So because it can do so much, it can, you know, it's doing all these effectively infinite, you know, variations of things, and we are obviously doing that will produce some really, really terrible looking environments and terrible looking, you know, color combinations and things. So Sean's created these robots, which can, not real robots, but, you know, simulated robots who can fly down to each planet and they record like a little animated GIF. And what we end up with is just a page of thumbnails.
So you say you've got animated GIF robot drones?
It flies down to a planet and records, yeah, a little fly through. So
that's insane.
And for a human being to do that, it would take ages. So it's a really nice way of us being able to view a crazy amount of visual data without having to do it manually.
This procedural system allows the team to create infinite permutations of flora, fauna, spaceships, and planets. Systems that are connected. The chemicals that exist in a planet's air define the color of its atmosphere. The amount of water changes the way in which land is formed, where beaches are. It's an entirely new way to build virtual worlds.
Part of why we don't say as well, it's exactly this and there will be this many creatures or ships, is because, you know, and I've shown you bits of this, those limits don't apply actually, right? And so we don't have to work to those. We're not restrained by content anymore, which is really freeing. But also part of it is like, we want people to explore. We don't want, so many people have asked us like, how many levels can you upgrade your weapon and stuff like that? And it's like, let's not tell people that, let's people discover that, you know what I mean? And kind of talk about it.
Yeah.
Like my favorite thing in, like Minecraft isn't like a big reference point for us or anything like that, but it has some parts that I just really admire. Like Minecraft never told you what the formulas were for crafting things. And I don't think I ever would have done that as a designer, right? really bold move, but it's so cool, you know? It's just so nice for a game to just go figure it out, because that's the games that I grew up with as a kid. You know, you would just load a game into your like Commodore 64, your Amstrad or whatever, and you would have to press all the buttons to figure out, like you'd press everything on the keyboard to figure out what the things did, you know what I mean? And I like that, and people are cleverer than what games designers think.
If I was to take one thing away from this project, from seeing the game in action, from talking to the guys at E3, it's that wonder is really important to them. In creating a universe where people might not meet each other, where planets may go uncovered forever, they are creating something that hasn't really ever existed in games. A world that most games pretend to make. A game without boundaries. Hello Games aren't interested in spilling the beans on this game or talking about specific mechanics or features. They want to retain its sense of wonder so that we can all enjoy it at launch, and I think that's pretty brave of them.
Thank you for spending time with us here in our wonderful alien forest, but the next big game, No Man's Sky, isn't over just yet. Tomorrow, Cameron Robinson sits down with Sean Murray to talk about building procedural universes and shows off the dev tools that built every tree, creature, planet and ship in No Man's Sky.